when I read other people's work or when I hear other people's word, I'm just like, wow, that's a cool title. And then when I look at mine, I'm just like, what am I doing with this title?
I thought, because I didn't really understand revision, I thought, it just showed up like that the first time you wrote it. You can take a weak piece and actually make it into a much stronger piece. It doesn't have to show up right off the bat perfect. These key tools that I have here for revision, those are actually pulled from the book that the essays are from, which I shared with folks at Salon, that they're actually from this book. Everything is from this book, actually, other than my own poetry. So yeah, I really do love this book because it shows 21 different poets and their actual initial draft and their final draft. And then they also have an essay as to why they made the changes that they made. And I mean, it's a great book. The editors, they basically said, in terms of revising, what are your thoughts about the title? Like, that's considered, I think, the most important first look.
I struggle with titles for my books. Yeah. Like, I don't know if it's just like being self-critical, because when I read other people's work or when I hear other people's word, I'm just like, wow, that's a cool title. And then when I look at mine, I'm just like, what am I doing with this title? I do tend to I finally leaped the bridge that I can revise the title as well. So that was I think a good step for me. But I think I get a little too hung up on brevity for titles. Yeah, so a lot of my poems have one-word titles, and I'm not sure that's doing them justice.
Yeah, me too. Sometimes I have very short ones. I've noticed that in working with Geoff, he likes longer ones. Sometimes that are more specific, like the Kowloon, Hong Kong one that you saw. He kind of said, "Hey Debbie, why?" Just to let you guys know, I had the first version had 2 stanzas that were kind of talking about the political upheaval going on. He's like, "Debbie, why don't you just put that in the title? People can look it up." But yeah, I was doing a whole description of what was going on and all the chaos. But then I started to interweave that into the poem. And just to let you guys know, the reason why I wanted to have this workshop is because until recently, I really didn't revise very much. I thought the poem either shows up on the page, the way it needs to look, because some of my best ones are probably ones that just showed up, like fully formed, or the ones that I would take to Salon. I would actually go to Salon and I would kind of use it to kind of view the feedback. And if that was one that people loved, then I knew that was in good shape. And then I just would take, some of the comments and do some quick surface edits. But I never knew about the actual taking something maybe that folks didn't really like and then actually working it into something that's stronger. I didn't know that. So I think 5 months ago, that's when I reached out to Geoff. I said, "Hey, I want to get better. I want to do all this." And then he went through one of my poems, and he had pretty in-depth critiques. And then I realized that I needed to revise more. And so then I started doing it. And then once I started doing it, I realized that you can take a weak piece and actually make it into a much stronger piece. It doesn't have to show up right off the bat perfect. And, which I didn't know. I thought it had to be either, and I also thought you would just throw away the weak ones. That's what I thought, which you don't have to do either. You can just keep on revising. So that was a game changer for me. So that's kind of, that whole thing is kind of what spurred on my thoughts about doing this talk, because I really didn't understand revision and I didn't know really what it was about. Because I thought, it either happens or it doesn't happen, right up front. So, Ricky, do you do quite a bit of revision?
I do, absolutely.
Okay. Because what I really love about your poetry is the surprising use of language and how fresh it is. I mean, it's really beautiful and wonderful. And, I thought because I didn't believe in I didn't really understand revision, I thought, it just showed up like that the first time you wrote it. So, but now that I know that you revise, I think that, yeah, takes effort. The opening line, they said is a big deal. Um, and then there's just a few comments there on that. Um, yeah, and I think the opening line is probably the most important, other than after the title, um, in terms of really so that people can hook onto it. I don't know if you guys find that. I mean, Ricky, do you focus a lot on the opening line?
Well, what I think is so dynamic, and I just want to plug this book that you're referencing, because I did get a copy of it based on your recommendation, and it's wonderful.
It is.
And it's not just about teaching revision, it's about teaching writing.
Mm-hmm.
To read the essays from the poets,
Yeah.
and you get an idea of their whole process.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
really fascinating.
It is.
What I find, I love to revise. I mean, for me,
Yeah.
it's the kind of the organic growth of a well,
Mhm.
and like opening line. Well, the opening line may not come first.
Right.
The title may not come first.
Right.
And it's about the
Growth.
more you revise. It's like riding a bike. I think the more you revise, the more you learn to listen to your poem.
Yeah.
What your poem wants to do.
Yeah. 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 That's what I'm learning. And then yeah, every line you need to look at the line breaks, um, where you break it, the form, the rhythm, even the words. You need to really I mean, I find with the revisions, I just keep on changing the words to make them stronger, especially the verbs and the images. Um, yeah, all of this and the turn and then form. That's where I struggle because I'm just mainly I write free verse. So I'm going to try to uh, learn the sonnet, the Shakespearean sonnet, which will be great. And then I'll try some other forms as well. That I think the more tools you have, the better it helps deepen your poetry. Um, Yeah, and then that last line is super important. Okay, so let's look at Frank's poem. He's got pull out this and let's kind of talk a little bit about the differences between his initial draft, Inherit, and then his final version, Inherit. I don't know if anybody wanted to read um maybe personal. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My body remembering my mother's stroke is all my headaches are. The anxiety I often feel is just the weight of doubt, handcuffed to her hopes and dreams. My aching joints are callbacks to all the hardwood and porcelain she scrubbed on her hands and knees. I wear her guilt and sorrows. Every worry line and stomach knot represents my inheritance. We don't stand on the shoulders of those that came before us. We swim in a river of their fears. How much of our dis-ease will we pass on to our children? How much of what eventually took my mother has already gotten its hands on me?
Okay.
It's the question. The annotations on the coffee that you get is yours.
Yeah, those are just my comments. Yeah, I marked it up. No, they're very thought change display here. Yeah. And then did someone want to volunteer to read the second poem on the right?
I can read it.
Okay, thanks.
My body remembering my mother's stroke is all my headaches are. The anxiety I often feel is just the tug of war between my doubt and her hopes and dreams. My aching joints call up the floors and toilets she scrubbed on hands and knees to feed us. I inherited her shame, her guilt, her sorrow. My every worry line and stomach knot, even sigh like her. I don't just stand on the shoulders of she who came before. Mama is my blood. Will I drown in the river of her fears?
Okay. So I did write some of his key points on the back of the cover sheet. In terms of, he talks about how he came up with the poem and how he revised, which is pretty cool. This is a cheat sheet, so we all don't have to read the essay. But yeah, he started off with a question. What invisible thing did he inherit from his mother? So that was pretty cool. And then he says he pretty much went through, he drafted it, he returned to the poem several times, and then he focused on specific emotional, temperature, tone, verbs, any images. And then what was very interesting is when he started talking about how he revised. And I think that's pretty cool because then we can look back and forth between these two versions.
It took me reading the poem to understand what the title was communicating, but the title made me curious.
Okay. Yeah, because I know sometimes we're concerned if the title is actually too clever, right? It pulls you out. So yeah, he does it in a very, very subtle way, which is good. And I think where he starts changing more is in that second stanza.
Because the first one he left as is.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. How do you guys feel about what the changes that he did from in the second stanza between the original and the final version? You feel it was effective or not effective?
I would say so. I think there's whenever you can, and I think there's probably a way to be more effective, but I think it's going in the right direction, going from like way up down, which is fairly abstract. I get it's written here, it's fairly abstract, but it's also because it's non-specific, you kind of take that in any kind of direction, or it's like tug of war kind of gives you more of a picture. That I think, even though it's a picture between, I would say, two abstracts, we're getting closer to hygiene being able to have like a more solid picture there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And there's more fluidity in the second version of the second stanza. In the first version of the second stanza, it's the weight, it's the handcuff. They've done a lot of motion there. Right here in the revised second stanza, it's a tug of war, it's more fluid.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's good. And then what about the third stanza? Between the original and the final version.
I like that he put the hands and knees line into the third stanza. Yeah, when I was reading through that, it kind of seemed severe to have it there by itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also really like that he changed the verb phrase from call back to call up, which elevates the importance of the work. His mother did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's much more visual for sure. Yeah.
But also it's more positive rather than call back. It's elevating. It's for the thing. It's honoring it in that regard.
Kind of like a callback is responding to something, whereas a call up is the initial call.
And he ends those stanza to feed up. And they get anything else so that we're just honor the work shows too.
I also think about what you even think about like media and like television, even if something is a callback, which you typically do is you're going out of the scene in order to go like render another scene. Whereas typically somebody calling something up or is more to recalling, where like you have the character in real time speaking about past events, which I think is it creates more of a kinetic energy moving forward in their narrative.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Yeah, it's definitely more active. I mean, I just feel like this one doesn't really, I don't feel like it's very as active as when I'm the second version. Hey. Here you go. Hey. How are you doing? Good, good. We're turning to this page right here where there's the 2 poems. Yeah. So we're kind of discussing the differences between the original draft and then the revised draft.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a hair.
Mm-hmm.
Hair.
Yep. See, I think this one is probably this third stanza. I think is where it really starts building up more. I feel it's almost like he's slowly building it up to where he gets to the third stanza. Alexia, did you want to maybe take a quick look at
The revised one or the revised one?
the difference between maybe like the 2 second stanzas and the 2 third stanzas between the original and the revised? Yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at right now. And maybe you can just kind of say a little bit what you think, which one seems more effective.
I kind of agree with the notes that I already have on here. This is more specific. And it's condensed in it being condensed and using heavier words has more of an impact in the final draft. The simple is different.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. It's definitely sharper, much more powerful. Yeah. And then what do you...
Yeah. I'm just noticing between the 2 second stanzas where it's the weight of doubt handcuffed to her hopes, that seems like a little like the image is less active, less, because the tug of war actually is just like depicting struggle and energy being expended, whereas being handcuffed, that expectation is that you're limited, and so it's not as active.
Yeah. And you can really feel the tension when you have the tug of war versus just, being handcuffed. I mean, to me, that's not the same.
I also think that like this is a really good example of like maybe an author is, when they are thinking about somebody being handcuffed, they are thinking of a tug of war because they are thinking of a struggle. But because it's not specific enough to actually show that to like not everybody would rent go to like a tug of war. It's like in the edit, you're thinking, well, how do I more clearly convey that what I'm thinking of here when I'm thinking of somebody being handcuffed, I am depicting a tug of war, is actually just to give the direct image of a tug of war. So that whatever the struggle is behind weight of doubt.
Right. Yeah. They're making it more clear. Yeah.
Especially when it's like to go from hardwood and porcelain. Okay, we do and clean that all time, but that is different when it goes from floors and toilets and toilets. She scrubbed on her hands at these, like just going more in depth to make you feel in place of that person. Because I don't know. I guess like being more specific helps draw more emotion to it.
Yeah. And then even adding that at the very end, to feed us. I mean, she's like doing this for a living. Yeah. Because I didn't get that feeling she was doing it for a living there in the original one.
Right.
But then the second version, the final version, I'm like, oh, wow. So she really had to do all that.
But I really like hardwood and porcelain better than floors and toilets.
Okay.
Why?
Because hardwood and porcelain is much more specific. And cleaning a floor could be a linoleum floor. Right. Hardwood is really hard to clean, stains. And porcelain, boy, that can take stains. It's also eraser, but that ties like TV. So I love the specificity of that. And for me, that is floors and toilets.
There's a more tactile, I think, feeling to you, because I think you could probably get a similar image between the two, but I can feel hardwood. I mean, feel horse on.
I think that hardwood is also like more common in more expensive houses. Yes. Yeah. So kind of reinforcing the servitude, as it were, of it. So the
Also, I mean, I don't know, and maybe this is just me. I think that to feed us feels like I don't think I needed that line in order to indicate that it was to feed them, because this kind of like that pain memory, like that generational pain memory, almost like my aching joints are callbacks to the hardwood and coarsen she scrubbed on her hands and knees. I'm like, what was that for, if not to feed? Be sure. What would, like, it's
Probably because moms clean the house regardless. You know what I mean? Like, mom is gonna clean the house regardless. So they're saying to feed them, like that was her job.
Yeah, it just pushes it. It pushes it further. It's not just, hey, I'm doing it for the house.
One thing that she's keeping her own house, but if she's doing it to feed us, then she's doing this for somebody else's house.
Yeah.
And then, like, because then you come into the next stanza, and in the final version, it's I inherited. And usually, if a parent has a job or life insurance or something, there's getting whatever they did in that. So it's just seeming like they're getting what she was doing for work, like they're inheriting that. Because they changed it from I wear her guilt and her sorrows to I hear.
Yeah.
I think, like, typically in the depiction of a hardship that would encompass talking about aching joints that are callbacks to hardwood and coarsen she scrubbed, it would be in general hardship for the family. So they would be depicting something that them as a family maybe would be going through, as opposed to it being like my mother. Like, this is a callback to something like specific to my mother. So maybe it's, I don't know, maybe for me to connect it, it would be a little bit like it wouldn't be as much, just because I would take that, like, any strains that my mom went through to, like, clean her home was, like, divested amongst, like, all of her kids. You know what I mean? As well, if that makes sense. So
How does what do you think about that change in the fourth big stanza in the original versus the fourth stanza in the final?
I like how he changed it from noun to verb. It was my inheritance, but then it was the original is my inheritance, but then the revision is I inherited. So, again, to me, I don't think I'm using these words right, but going from a passive concept, like a noun not being active, but then changing it to a verb makes it more active, that there's motion.
Now,
also, like the recognition that, like, where the author's using I wear and inheritance is kind of the same, so they went with one or the other for the provision.
I think putting the my every worry line versus just every worry line, I think my every worry line connects it back to the narrator. So there's more of that connection of what he's inheriting is much better than just every worry line.
I wonder why this person went from we swim in the river of their fears to will I drown in the river of her fears. Like, I wonder why this switch was so.
Swimming feels safer than drowning.
Well, but they chose drowning, so
Yeah. I think I'm gonna. I think that they may have done that because they wanted to make sure they had a very, very strong final end. It's not so right, like the way it is right here, it's just kind of questions, right? But then if you look at this final version, it just has a very, very strong end with the drowning. An image actually that kind of like hits you and sustains the poem. But when I sit here with the original version, I'm seeing rhetorical questions, right? And it just doesn't really grab me the way this last line does. I mean, this last line really grabs me.
Well, it's that idea of fear. I think that the narrator is feeling that same fear. I forgive me for being contrary, but there's some things in this original version I really like a lot that he lost.
Yeah.
I liked in the fourth full stanza. I liked I wear her guilt, her sorrows, the the worry lines, the stomach. I like how visceral that was, and I think he lost a little bit of that in the second version. And something else I really liked was in that second stanza, the idea of being handcuffed, the weight of doubt, handcuffed, and he goes back to that image of hands at the end. Her hands on me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know exactly how to include, but I like those elements a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important to look at the original one and see what is actually lost when you go to here.
And that's the tricky thing about revision.
Exactly.
Because sometimes you can just revise the juice out of it,
Exactly. That's why you need to keep all of your versions.
Yay.
No, I literally like have everything like in my laptop. And so when I revise it, I just save the new one and the date that I did the revision, because my idea, the lady who doesn't read, is going to go back and reread and see, the things that I did and whether or not I agree with them later.
Do you use Word documents?
Yeah.
So I could use like Google Drive. It's gonna save your revision no matter what.
I don't like Google.
I'm just saying, like, if that's like something you were worried about, or anybody's worried about, like losing anything, you use Google. If you use a Drive, it's not gonna. It won't. You can erase it and then you go back. It's still be there. See there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big Word person also. I have everything on Word.
Generation.
Yeah, probably.
I think it is important for them to choose one or the other, but I do think they lost something when they got rid of eyewear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before I look at it.
Actually, I think I like I Wear better than I Inherited.
I like the fact that they're like, I don't need them to say I think they're trying to go for the title of the poem, like being it inside of the poem, but I'm like, they're conveying the title of the poem. I wear, like, I get that.
Yeah, I think he's trying to push it really hard with this final draft. But I do love his poetry, right? I mean, I like seeing the difference between the two.
There's part of me that would like to see a revision that has elements of both.
Yeah.